from East Prussia, from the mainland, and even from like Slovakia against Poland. And then, as we all know, later the Soviet Union joins and invades as well. So today, we're going to be talking about a specific part of the beginning of the Polish campaign. We're going to be talking about the northern front. So from East Prussia, where the Third Army and the Modlin Army fight each other, and this is going to involve areas like Mława, and areas both to the right and left of it, and probably in next episode, I'm going to be talking about the events in Pomerania and the collapse of the Pomortia Army. So for today, since I'm talking about the Modlin front, I'm going to give a little bit of like a brief overview of what it is. So it involves two sides, as I said, the German Third Army, whose commander is Georg von Kugler, and the Polish side, just a Modlin Army, which is the army to north of Warsaw that is going to cover this area as defense, and it's going to be commanded by Henryk Krukowicz-Brzezinski, who is like a pretty famous Polish general at this time. So this is an area that Poland cares about a lot, because obviously it's the closest point that the Germans can get to Warsaw, the capital, immediately. And the Germans also have a substantial amount of forces there, although definitely it's not the so-called main attack of the invasion of Poland. Of course, that's like the 10th Army and maybe the 8th and 14th along with it in Army Group South. So this is going to be like the first time that the Germans actually engage in large warfare. I mean, consider it's like it's a huge conflict. It's 2 million German men, more or less, and then more or less 1 million Polish soldiers. So the Germans have obviously they've annexed Austria, they've annexed the Sudetenland and the rest of Czechoslovakia, and they have occupied the mainland at this point. But then Poland is where military might is actually shown for the first time in World War II. So that's the significance of the invasion of Poland. So first I'm going to start by talking about both sides, and the Polish side, front, German side is the front, the preparations made by both a little bit, and then I'm going to go over like what forces are there. So kind of think about it like a table of contents or in order of battle for both sides. So as I said, Poland has one army, the Modlin Army, and it's named after the Modlin Fortress, which is a little fortress to the northeast of Warsaw, and the main defense is going to be north of it, basically at the border with East Prussia, and a main point of the conflict will be at the town of Mława. So the Modlin Army consists of the 20th Infantry Division, the 8th Infantry Division, and also 2 cavalry brigades, the Nowogrodzka Cavalry Brigade, which is like to the west, and then to the east there's the Mazowiecka Cavalry Brigade. So 20th Division in the front again, 80th in the back as reserve, and then you have on the 2 flanks the cavalry brigades that are going to cover the outsides of it. And this is actually quite perfect because the geography, the landscape of this area favors going it's pretty swampy in this area, I have to say. It's pretty swampy, the area between East Prussia and in front of Mława. So for tanks, it's probably best to go around it, either through left or right flanks. So that's why they're covered by cavalry brigades rather than infantry division, the 20th Infantry Division, which is in the center. And this is really good for Polish defense because they realized that the Germans kind of have to go around to either one of the flanks or both, or they're going to suffer heavy casualties if they want to go directly at it. And the Germans need to take Mława, of course, because that's where the main formation of defense is. So actually, there was a secret Polish mobilization in March 1939. That involved a lot of effort being brought up on all different parts of the army, and there's no exception for the Modlin Army, as the Modlin Army got a lot of construction material and some extra battalions, I think like engineer battalions or so, that they didn't have before, so they're really mobilized. So this already, like, I want to dispel the myth of the Polish army being a weak force that just got gobbled up by the Germans and then the Soviets, because that's not how it was. They were a very strong military force. Their army was, their army was stronger than Britain's at that time, which is like a lot. They've mobilized and they've spent a lot of time, money, and energy into defending the western borders as much as their east. So the Poles in the Modlin front are definitely well prepared. And since, as I said before, it's one of the fronts that they care about more, the General HQ, they're going to get more resources in the build-up. So they're going to be more well-equipped than, for example, the Pomorza Army, which I'm probably going to cover next episode. So the area of contact on September 1st, it's going to be the area north of Mława, and that's going to be the northern approaches to Warsaw. And the main force of the 20th Infantry Division that's defending this area of Mława, it's like a fortress, is the 78th Infantry Division and the 78th Infantry Regiment and the 80th Infantry Regiment that are on either side. The 79th Infantry Regiment's like sort of in the center, and of course also the 20th Artillery Regiment is also part of the 20th Infantry Division, and that's going to be a bit in the rear, so it's not going to be actually in the front line, because obviously it's artillery regiment, that's what you're supposed to do with it. And in addition, also 3 infantry battalions, and both regiments of the 20th Division that were on the front, so 78th and 80th, had 2 artillery battalions each. So they're pretty well defended. They have good artillery as well, and they also share a machine gun battalion, the 2 of them. And meanwhile, the 79th Infantry Division, which is at Rzegnowo, a different fortified area to the east, it's about like 10 to 15 miles east of Mława. That also has 3 infantry regiments and 2 artillery battalions, so it's also well equipped with artillery guns, although it doesn't have that many light tanks, which other parts of it might have, like little Polish tankettes. But it also has a small armored company, though. I've already talked about the 20th Infantry Division. So the 8th Infantry Division is kind of like in the reserve south of Mława, and that's a force for either potential counterattack or to help an immediate retreat south if the campaign goes really that poorly for the Poles in the beginning. If on September 1st or September 2nd they just lose the entire front, then you might need the 8th Infantry Division to support a retreat. For now, it's a reserve division in the reserve of the Modlin Army, and that's going to consist of 3 infantry regiments and 1 artillery regiment. Of course, it's the 13th Infantry Regiment, the 24th Infantry Regiment, and the 32nd Infantry Regiment and also the 8th Infantry, the 8th Artillery Regiment. All of the artillery regiments in the Polish army, as well as the German, I think, have their naming system in terms of numbers the same thing as their division. So, for example, 8th Infantry Division, so 8th Artillery Regiment. That's how it works. And further northeast is the Narv Group. The Narv Group, by its name, you can probably guess they're trying to prevent a crossing of the Narv River. They're not going to be so active in the beginning of the war. In fact, I think September 6th is the first time they actually meet initial contact with the Germans. They're already in the front line. They're right next to East Prussia, but there are no German forces there. Only border guard companies. So they're kind of just going to sit there, do nothing really. And one can argue that perhaps the Narv operational group should have moved one of its divisions over to west, but it didn't. It just stayed there. And just to summarize what the Narv group is, its commander, the general headquarters is in Warsaw, so not actually in the front line, I believe. Actually, maybe it is. Yes, it is directly in the front line, but they report to Warsaw, the general HQ, like all the other German operational groups do. So it's not a part of the Modlin Army. It's a completely separate force to the northeast, and it's got its own commander, its own group, and it's made up of the 18th Infantry Division, the 33rd Infantry Division, the Polacka Cavalry Brigade, and the Suwalska Cavalry Brigade. So it's also got 2 infantry divisions and 2 cavalry brigades. So it has a lot of force, a lot of punch power, but it doesn't actually use it in the first few days of the war. So I think that's kind of over for the Polish side of things, unless I forgot something. So I'm going to now go over the German forces before the campaign, which are grouped into the 3rd Army. The 3rd Army is a part of, well, technically it's first part of the 2nd Army, which is kind of weird. But 2nd Army later becomes, on September 2nd, Army Group North, which makes a lot more sense. The 3rd Army in East Prussia and the 4th Army in Western Pomerania, they're both a part of Army Group North, and they're just kind of going to cut off the Polish corridor and going to attack south to Warsaw. At least that was the initial intention. So the 3rd Army is commanded by Georg von Kugler, and it's made up of the 1st Army Corps, not the 26th, it's called the Vodry Corps, named after its commander, and it's going to also have a reserve 217th Infantry Division, which doesn't see as much combat, but it will see some combat in the Modlin front. So the 1st Army Corps, that's commanded by Walter Petzel. Walter Petzel, in his corps, there's 1 Panzer division and there's two infantry divisions. So there's the 11th Infantry Division and the 61st Infantry Division that are kind of supposed to be main infantry force, because again, at this time, the idea is that infantry should be the main part and panzer divisions are just accompanying them. But later we'll see how actually the panzer divisions are the most, maybe not the most important, but definitely the most mobile, and they are the ones that actually bring in the first blows against the Polish army in these cases, not only in Modlin front but also in other parts, in Silesia and in Pomerania. So 11th Infantry Division, 61st Infantry Division, and Panzer Division Kempf, which is obviously named after its divisional commander, Werner Kempf. And they're going to be moving south directly to Mława at this time. So just to go over each division, the 11th Infantry Division is commanded by General Lieutenant Max Bock, same name as Fitter von Bock, last name, and it's made up of the 2nd, 23rd, and 44th Infantry Regiments, and it also has the 11th Infantry Regiment, the 11th Artillery Regiment, but also the 47th Artillery Regiment, which you might think is kind of weird because usually it's just the 11th Artillery Regiment, because 1 Artillery Regiment, 3 Infantry Regiments, right? That's the classic organization for a German infantry division at this point, Wave 1, Wave 2, Wave 3. But this one has another additional artillery regiment because of just how important the commanders see artillery in this part of the war. Why? Because you're not going for swift warfare, just going through the fields without any obstacles. No, you'll have obstacles, natural geographic obstacles that are going to make your job pretty difficult. So you might want to bombard your enemies with artillery first. So you have double the artillery firepower as a normal infantry division will get. And the 61st Infantry Division, that's commanded by Major General Siegfried Hanek, and this consists of 151st, 162nd, and 176th infantry regiments. So obviously high number ones. They're rather new, not old infantry regiments. And of course the 61st Infantry Artillery Regiment. And Panzer Division Kempf, it's commanded by Werner Kempf, and it's made up of the 7th Panzer Regiment, and it's got some artillery forces as well, but it's got the engineers, it's got the panzers, and it's got all of the extra Panzer Division supplies, as any other Panzer Division would have. It's just named Panzer Division Kempf for whatever reason. It's not a numbered Panzer Division in this case. It's like a special Panzer Division in a way. So that's the 1st Army Corps, Walter Petzel, and then the next what I'll go over is the Vodery Corps. So the Vodery Corps, named after its commander Albert Voderig, that's east of the 1st Corps, so the left flank, the left side front line for the Germans, right side front line for the Poles, and it consists of the 1st Infantry Division and the 12th Infantry Division. And the 1st Infantry Division, it's facing kind of like near Rzegnowo, but not directly. It's at Janowo, kind of, and it consists of the 1st Infantry Regiment, 22nd Infantry Regiment, and the 43rd Infantry Regiment, and of course also the 1st Artillery Regiment. And the 12th Infantry Division consists of the 12th Artillery Regiment, and the 27th Artillery Regiment, Infantry Regiment, the 48th Infantry Regiment, and the 88th Infantry Regiment. So that's going to be the 1st and 12th infantry divisions. That's going to be in the Vodery Corps. No Panzer divisions at this point. The only single Panzer division in the entire German area of this front is going to be Panzer Division Kempf. So you can kind of guess what's going to happen. Panzer Division makes a breakthrough, everything else collapses around it, and infantry just wipes everything else. more or less. So, in addition, Third Infantry, the Third Army, Kukler also has under his command the 1st Cavalry Brigade. The 1st Cavalry Brigade is kind of to the east, and not actually being the main attack, but it's important because it's going to hinder things like the Mazowiecki Cavalry Brigade, as we'll see. And there's also the 217th Infantry Division, which is a reserve division of the Third Army, and it's considerably smaller than the other ones, than the other infantry divisions like 1st, 12th, 11th, 61st Infantry Division. The 217th is much weaker. It's not going to face directly any divisions, any Polish troops in the beginning of the war. And also, frankly, it's just like worse quality division. So 1st Corps, Vodry Corps, Brand. So Group Brand also exists. That doesn't actually do any fighting, but technically it's under the jurisdiction of the Third Army. They have control over it. It's kind of like a defense force in East Prussia, mostly centered around the city of Königsberg, and it's just a group of a bunch of defense battalions. They're basically police forces. So that might be worth a mention, although we're not going to ever talk about that in the actual course of the invasion. So to wrap it up, on the Polish side of things, the Modlin Army has 20th Infantry Division, 8th Infantry Division, and then the 2 cavalry brigades, Mazowiecki in the right, and not Wielkopolski, the other one on the left. And the Germans, they have the 1st Army Corps and the Vodry Corps, and you also got the 1st Cavalry Brigade and the 217th Infantry Division, which is again small, not really important division. It's actually like the size of a brigade, maybe more, maybe less. It's considerably smaller, and yeah, those are the forces that are going to fight each other off from September 1st to actually September 3rd, but there's some fallout that happens up until September 5th. So I'm going to try to go over all of that if I can. That'd be great. So I'm going to start first. All right, so to set the scene, it's a night on August 31st. Hitler had made the order to invade Poland, full-on invasion of Poland. They're getting ready for war. The diplomatic fallout already happened, and Poland knows it's going to get invaded. And September 1st at dawn, like before dawn actually, like from midnight, the Germans are crossing the border in all different parts of the front, no exception for this area, Modlin front. And there's Stukas bombing Warsaw and frontline areas as well. The town of Chu, which is south of Danzig, is also bombed. The Germans try to take that bridge with armored car reconnaissance, but they failed to get it. They also try to use an armored train. Armored trains. There's only 4 armored trains in this entire war, by the way. Well, in this entire German-Polish war. And one of them is going to be wasted on Chu. In the Modlin front, the Germans first cross the border at roughly 5 in the morning. The invasion starts at 4:45, but the first Germans who cross the border are sighted by the Poles by around 5 o'clock a.m. So Walter Petzel's corps is going on the western side front directly towards Mława, and Wodrik is going kind of like diagonally-ish, like east towards Przanish, which is a small town like it's east of Mława. And actually, what's pretty good about the situation in the very beginning of the invasion, the first few hours, is that the Modlin front, unlike, for example, the Pomeranian front, the Pomortia front, the Pomortia army, the Modlin army actually gets noticed that the invasion occurred. So they know they gotta prepare, they know that the Germans are coming, and that they gotta defend. So their eyes are keen, just watching out for Germans, especially the 20th Infantry Division is. And that gets them a little more prepared than some other Polish units, and that bring a small advantage to them. So the 11th Infantry Division, Max Bock, they are the first ones to cross the border at 5 a.m. and they reach the 80th Infantry Regiment's defenses. So again, that's like the eastern side of the 20th Infantry Division for the Poles, and as you can expect, the Polish infantry fire at the Germans. The Germans are kind of hurt, and also the two right flank divisions of Max Bock's 11th Division is also repulsed by the 78th Infantry Regiment on the other side. So Max Bock is not doing very well in the very start, and the next wave comes, Panzer Division Kempf. The Panzer Division, they attack and they're going to fail. So they have a strongly moralized effort to advance southwards. Even SS Regiment Deutschland, which is a part of this, I guess I forgot to mention that earlier. That's a part of Panzer Division Kempf, and they also attempt to go south to cut off the road to Mława, and behind Mława and in front of Mława, but they fail. They're halted by the Poles at this town called Uniszki Zawadzki, and the attempts to attack 80th Infantry Regiment fail as well. So 20th Artillery Regiment, Light Artillery Regiment also bombard the Germans at the same time. The German infantry and Panzer Division, but not Panzers, Panzer Divisions, are badly mauled by this artillery bombardment. And so since the SS Regiment Deutschland, Deutschland failed to meet its goals of infiltrating the 20th Infantry Division, Panzer Division Kempf itself, its panzers, are now going to try to break through. So 7th Panzer Regiment of Panzer Division Kempf arrive in the afternoon, I think 14 o'clock, 15 o'clock, something like that, to support the SS Regiment's attempts, but they found a bunch of obstacles. There are concrete, tall obstacles that really, it's like a wall almost, that the Polish army had built before the war, and they're unable to break it. They're actually pretty scary defenses. They're tall, they're concrete. You can't just break through it very easily, and even if you wanted to, there's a huge ditch, a 6-meter ditch, 6-meter wide ditch. So even if you have huge panzers like Panzer IIIs or something, it's going to be really hard to just find this way, even if you get a bunch of engineers to help you with it. So you have to go around. But what happens is that Panzer Division Kempf, specifically 7th Panzer Regiment, they believe that like they can just like go right through it, and they fail, and they learn their lesson, right? What they do is they move parallel to the front line. There's Polish snipers, Polish riflemen, and Polish artillery, and the panzers are just going parallel to the front line. And you don't have to be a military expert to understand why that's such a bad idea. You have panzers, the front line's like this, and you try to break through over here, you failed, so you're going directly like this, within range of Polish guns. That's not very smart, but that's what Kempf did. Kind of shows his ineptitude for being a Panzer Division commander, and I mean, frankly, he's an old German, like World War II style general. He there's a lot of those. They don't believe in like the kind of Heinz Guderian method, if you will, of fast mobility, breaking through. Kempf kind of wants Great War style warfare, in a way, although it's with tanks, of course. So after this failure, Werner Kempf writes a letter. Actually, no, I think it's a phone call. He phones Kugler, either directly or through Petzel, basically just outlining how horrible the attack had been. So the assault really fails for Panzer Division Kempf, and Kugler understands this as well. And Panzer Division Kempf withdraws by the evening, and by the night, they haven't made much progress against 80th Infantry Regiment. So in total, 80th Infantry Regiment survived 3 assaults on September 1st alone. First with the infantry, then with the SS, then with the panzers. They survived all 3 of them because of just great defenses, anti-tank ditches, and good guns as well. So on the other side of the front, on the other side, like the Poles, but on the other side of the German front, you have Volturi Corps, which advances south just like everything else, but they do much better than Walter Petzel's 1st Army Corps. They actually make a little bit of progress. So German 1st Infantry Division, they attack 79th Infantry Regiment at Rzegnowo, and they fail. And Derleyen's 12th Infantry Division attacks as well. Just 1st Division, 12th Division, more or less side by side, but 1st Division first. And they don't get what they exactly want, but 12th Division does manage to push the Polish Mazowiecka Cavalry Brigade back like a few kilometers, few miles. And that's progress, right? You didn't cross any bridges, you didn't cross any rivers, you didn't destroy a large amount of Polish troops, but you got the Polish Cavalry Brigade out of that area to the east. And in the evening, the 11th Cavalry Regiment of the Mazowiecka Cavalry Brigade has to retreat, but they end up having to fight a German cavalry brigade. Remember, Germany has a cavalry brigade. The 1st Cavalry Brigade is going almost directly against Mazowiecka Cavalry Brigade, but instead it's 1st Division, 12th Division, and 1st Cavalry Brigade just going against one cavalry brigade, right? that the Polish are outnumbered in this area as well. So they retreat, but they're not horribly destroyed, which is pretty good for the Polish on September 1st. This is called the Battle of Lazy Królewski, which is it's kind of famous for its image of a Polish cavalry fighting against Germans, which is going to be a recurring theme. Joseph Goebbels loves using Polish cavalry against German tanks as huge propaganda measure, which, as I'll talk about it, that's not necessarily true. They don't like to do that all the time, and the Poles do manage to fight back a lot in the Modlin Army as well. So by the end of the first day, September 1st ends, and Third Army had made almost no gains against the Modlin Army. They did make a little headway in the east with 1st Infantry Division, 12th Infantry Division, and 1st Cavalry Brigade fighting against Mazowiecka Cavalry Brigade. But for the main front, Petzel at Mława, it's not going so well. So Mława stands, and Rzegnowo is kind of hindered, but not in any substantial way that destroys the front by any means. The Polish army is standing perfectly fine in all of the Polish north. So Army Group North in general actually doesn't make that much progress this day on September 1st. And what's important is that during the night, there's a lot of maneuvers. Always there's maneuvers in the night, but this one's important. Kugler comes to the conclusion in the night that the 1st Corps should continue attacking 78th and 90th, 78th and 80th infantry regiments, but Werner Kemp's division should go east to Rzegnowo. So that makes a lot of sense. That might be what I would do if I was Kugler at this point, or Petzel. You're not making much progress as you want in the 1st Army, the 1st Corps, and you are making a lot of progress in 26th Corps, Vodry Corps, and you have a Panzer Division. Where do you want to use the Panzer Division? To come up to go through these huge fortifications? No, that's what infantry is for. Use Panzer Divisions to go through plains and just surround the enemy and threaten encirclement. And that's exactly what Kugler does. So the Vodry Corps would gain the Panzer Division Kempf by the morning. And on the Polish side, Krukowicz-Przezromirski does understand the situation, and at the end of this day, or middle of this day, he meets with General Commander-in-Chief Edward Ryczmigwi, and talks to him about the situation in the north, the Modlin front. And basically they say, like, maybe we should concentrate forces in Vyshkov, and they also consider withdrawing a bit from Rzegnowo, but then decide, no, we gotta stand strong in both places, Mława and Rzegnowo, both of those places, and only then could we actually expect to survive. They want to survive, not to win and reach Berlin. They just don't want Warsaw to be captured. That's their main goal. And they didn't make any counterattack plan yet. And even until this point, 8th Infantry Division doesn't have much going on. 8th Infantry Division is just lying around as a reserve, and they haven't been allocated to either side front. And I think a big worry for this, in terms of Emil Krukovic-Mirski's perspective, is that you don't know where the Germans are going to have the main attack. Right now, it seems like the main attack is going directly at Mława, but it could be at Rzegnowo, or it could be in between, or it can be totally to the right, or it can be totally to the left flank. You don't know, right? It's just the first day, and there's a lot of maneuvers that can happen. So although you're kind of hurting your sense by not utilizing an entire infantry division that could be used on the front line, it's pretty strategic, because a huge worry for the Polish army is encirclement. They even if they get badly damaged, they can keep fighting as long as they're not encircled. If they're encircled, they have like almost no choice. You basically just fight a little bit more, then you get barraged by artillery, you surrender, and you get captured. That's what usually happens. So there's no plans to retreat out of Mława or Rzegnowo to Modlin Fortress anytime soon, by the end of September 1st. So then begin talking about September 2nd. September 2nd, there's going to be a lot more happening, but it's not a total collapse of forces yet, even till the end of September 2nd. Spoiler alert. So troops on both sides of frontline Germans, Germany and Poland, they're both really exhausted. They're tired, but they're also both highly moralized. The Germans have high morale because they think that they're taking over a country for the good of their own, and the Polish troops have high morale because they know they're not beaten. They're expecting to lose. Their question is not, will I win against the Germans or will I lose? The question is, how long is it going to take to lose? And they haven't lost yet, and that's why their morale is so high, which is pretty good for them. And you probably know this, but the main Polish defensive idea is not to have a full year long, not to be able to hold out for a year against the Germans. They're not going to do that. They know. Like a few weeks, maybe several. But the main idea is that they need the French and hopefully the British support to attack Germany to relieve some of that pain that the Polish armies are facing at this moment on September 1st and September 2nd. So, okay, back to Modlin. Right, there's the 78th Infantry Regiment, 80th Infantry Regiment, and both are attacked by Stukas. So Army Group North's equivalent in terms of air power is Luftwaffe 1, and they do a lot of air campaigns in this area. They don't do a lot of air campaigns in the Pomeranian front, which is the other part of their jurisdiction, because of bad weather conditions. So the Luftwaffe is totally concentrated in Mława and also like Danzig, right? I mean, they also have things to worry about in Hell Peninsula and Westerplatte. But for our main purposes, Luftwaffe 1 bombs the 78th and 80th Infantry Regiments at Mława, and then artillery attacks them, so they're hit twice, and then infantry attacks them. So 61st Infantry Division launches its attack on 78th Infantry Regiment, And again, there was a division versus a regiment. The division fails because thanks to all of the great anti-tank, or even, I can call it anti-infantry defenses. They're really good. And then 20th Infantry Division's right flank is at Rzegnowo, and there the German 1st Infantry Division was able to make a breach behind the Polish forces. So between the Mazowiecka Cavalry Brigade and the 79th Infantry Regiment, the Germans make a breach. They penetrate the front line, and they're kind of through, but they're not all done yet. So although they do break through, it's a breakthrough. Don't get me wrong, but they haven't destroyed either the brigade or the infantry regiment. In fact, the regiment withdraws by the end of the evening. They withdraw because you're about to get surrounded. You're about to get surrounded on all sides, so it makes sense. They withdraw by around 6 p.m. and 12th Infantry Regiment, 12th Infantry Division, and 1st Cavalry Brigade, they continue pummeling Mazowiecka Cavalry Brigade with attacks and assaults. And the Germans lose a lot of men and a lot of equipment, but so do the Polish soldiers. Although they're not completely destroyed, and the Polish are still standing strong in this area. So quite ironically, this is considered a success at this point. This area that I just talked about, Albert Wodryk's corps, not able to destroy any Polish armies, Polish division, Polish regiments, and unable to make a total breach, besides that one breakthrough in between Mazowiecka Cavalry Brigade and 79th Infantry Regiment. But Wodryk calls this a victory, and actually Kukler, I think, also calls it a victory, although in different words. And actually, I'm not so sure about it, because there's a lot of things they could have done with that much numerical advantage, firepower advantage, and there's no big natural defenses other than the fortifications at Rzegnowo itself. Enjoying this coffee. It's not coffee, it's water. Speaking of water, the river, right? The Warta River at this point, again, I'll say this, but there's no movement by the Germans against the Warta operation. The Narv operational group, and they're kind of just sitting there. 20th Infantry Division is in trouble, and Mazowiecka Cavalry Brigade is also kind of in trouble, and then you just have 2 divisions and 2 brigades just casually idling in the north. They're not even able to go into East Prussia. You have to consider that because there's border guards. The border guards disallow the Poles from going into East Prussia and taking Königsberg, but the Germans are also not able to attack the Narv group. So kind of just like a standstill. In a way, it's like a mini phony war in that area of the front, the northeast, the far northeast of the front line. So September 2nd kind of just goes without the rest of the day. Doesn't have much fighting in either front line. Mława isn't attacked. but with the help of Panzer Division Kampf, Volturi Corps does make some additional movements in the Rzegnowo sector, the front, but again, they haven't actually destroyed the Modlin Army. Modlin Army is still standing strong at both of these locations, Mława and Rzegnowo. So what happens in the night is that Kugler, he decides, he makes a plan. Okay, so all right, pretend you're girlfriend Kugler and you've witnessed the poor attacks on 79th Infantry Regiment. They've succeeded a little, but Polish 79th is still standing strong, and the same could definitely be said even more for 78th. 78th Infantry Division is not destroyed, and 80th Infantry Regiment is also not destroyed. Sorry if I sometimes confuse. If I misspoke and say division when I mean regiment, or regiment when I say division. 78th Regiment and 80th Infantry Regiment are all standing strong. So what do you do if you're Kugler? So what Kugler did is he decides to basically move everything around and kind of just hit Mława from behind, which is bold move, and it's actually pretty smart, I think. You don't want to just keep attacking an area that you're not gonna make much achievement in. You go around and put all your forces in the area that is making progress, which is the eastern flank at Rzegnowo, and that's what Kugler decides. I think, right? Panzer Division Kampf is already in. It's already in this area of the front by September 2nd, but by September 3rd, I think that's when they actually get like pretty active. So Kampf's division hasn't made any actual engagements at this front on September 2nd, but they will on September 3rd, because Kugler decides that they need Kampf, and the Panzer Division is going to make all the breakthrough and go behind the Mława garrison. So the Germans have a plan, and for the Polish army, well, Krukowicz, Przezromirski understands that the Germans are probably going to move their forces, specifically probably Panzer Division Kampf, around into the eastern flank. So he expects this, and so does Everett Ridgemigwy, and they decide to bring in the 8th Infantry Division, the reserve, finally, and they're going to go to Sichanov, to Chichanov, and they're going to make a stand at Rzegnowo. And this considerably extends like the capabilities of the Polish army at this point, because they're really bogged down in all parts, and they cannot afford to move as much as a battalion over to a different area of the front, because Modlin is under so much pressure that the 3 infantry regiments were attacked by 3 infantry divisions, and Rzegnowo is also outnumbered but at this point, both forces realize that Rzegnowo is where they're going to meet and have a big fight. And yeah, for the most part, September 1st, Germany didn't make any breakthrough in Modlin, Mława, and they made some breakthrough in Rzegnowo. But the big events happen on September 3rd, as in pretty much all across the Polish theater, in Warsaw front and in Silesia as well. A lot of the big events happen on September 3rd. So to start off September 3rd, the 217th Infantry Division, which is a strategic reserve of the 3rd Army, but are actually on the front line as opposed to just sitting around in Königsberg or Memel. They attack a little bit to the south, and they make some progress against Nowogrodzka Cavalry Brigade, despite being a traditionally weak infantry division. 217th makes some progress, which is somewhat important in the sense that they add pressure to other parts of the Polish front. But yeah, I just wanted to get that out of the way because the main part of the front, the movement that's happening on the day of September 3rd, 1939, is at Rzegnowo. So Panzer Division Kampf comes. They arrive at the area around Wodry Corps, and in the morning, they or in the afternoon, they start their attack. So you got three divisions. One Panzer division is one of them, and you also got a cavalry brigade going against nothing but one Polish infantry regiment and one Polish cavalry brigade. And the cavalry brigade is not even made up of a bunch of regiments, it's just a bunch of battalions. So yes, there's a lot of disparity between the amount of German troops on this area and the Polish troops. The Polish troops are like outnumbered 3-1 everywhere. Someplace like 4-1. And a lot of this actually is because of the fact that the narrative operational group is just standing still in the east, not doing anything, when they have 2 infantry divisions and 2 cavalry brigades that could have done something to save to save the Mazowiecka cavalry brigade, but they can't. They're under a different command, and that's not their purpose. So what happens in Rzegnowo is Panzer Division Kampf. They're the main force that do the attacking. They try to go in 3 directions by splitting into different Kampfgruppen, which are just different operational groups within a force, like a division. And I can't tell you what all 3 of those Kampfgruppen did, but they all moved south against Mazowiecka Cavalry Brigade, as well as against the eastern elements of the 20th Infantry Division, and they cut off a lot of the Polish cavalry, which is a huge achievement, because now the Polish lines they're scrambling. The Polish troops are scrambling at this point. The cavalry brigade, Mazowiecka, they're somewhat trapped. They're able to break through, but they're just in a horrible situation. And what makes it a little bit worse is that Emil Krukowicz, Przeczymirski does not know how terrible the situation is, especially for Mazowiecka Cavalry Brigade. He even sends like a message asking the brigade commander, like, what's up, what's going wrong, and you gotta like do this, these are my plans, and you hold still up until September 4th. That's not what the situation is. The reality of the situation is so poor. Mazowiecka Cavalry Brigade is basically destroyed at this point. They're demolished. They're encircled, and the German panzer have gone past them, and there's no way to supply them if they do want to survive for a little bit. So not only the Panzer Division Kampf, also of course Woodrich's 2 infantry divisions make progress as well, the 1st and the 12th, but also there's some German saboteurs, which makes things a little more difficult for the Poles, because they go in front of the lines just to cut off the Polish communication. So Polish communication is cut off. 8th Division, that's going in to save Nowogrodzka Cavalry Brigade, they can't communicate between the regiments and between the staff of the divisional headquarters and each of the regiments. They can't communicate. So this leads to a lot of problems. 79th Infantry Regiment, they retreat, obviously, and a lot of them, some of them make through, much of them, some of them don't. But 1st and 12th Infantry Division of Werner, of Woodrich's Corps, they kind of just like follow the lead of the Panzer Division, and they go along with wherever they are. And the situation looks pretty terrible for Mazowiecka Cavalry Brigade, as I said. In 8th Division, although they're supposed to be the final hope, the help, they don't actually do what they're supposed to do. And that entire eastern front line near Rzegnowo, even though basically Rzegnowo is, they might as well be captured. It's horrible for the Polish side of things. So even though the army commander moves 8th Division over, one, their communication is blocked. 2, they don't have any supporting units. They just can't counterattack. And one issue that happens is that the divisional commander, which is Colonel Fergalski, he's the commander of 8th Infantry Division. He makes a huge mistake for that situation. I don't know if the division would have done much progress if he did not make that mistake, but it's definitely a mistake to split his division into 2 groups. Use 1 regiment to attack in one direction, and then 2 regiments to attack another. And also considering that there's massive communication problems, there's issues. 21st Infantry Regiment goes alone, absolutely no support, no light tanks, no, they might have had engineers, but no artillery support, no air support, and no reconnaissance support at all, of course. They're just facing entire, like, divisions, basically, and without any obstacles. A division that's well equipped and with good leadership and with well-trained men are almost always going to outmatch a regiment, which is like the size of a fifth of a division, a regiment that has their communications broken off. They don't have any support. They've acceptable equipment, but they don't have outlandish German equipment. So who do you think is going to win? It's going to be the German infantry division. So that's exactly what happens. And same thing with 32nd Infantry Regiment along with 13th Infantry Regiment. Those two go on the eastern side, the other side, and they try to help the 79th Infantry Regiment, but they're not able to do that. So as I said, the German saboteurs have cut off communication lines. They fight each other. You might expect, okay, so they gotta help out 79th Infantry Regiment. So who are they going to attack? 1st Infantry Division, German 12th Infantry Division. Are they going to attack one of the Kampfgruppen of the Panzer Division camp? No, they fight each other because they don't realize who each other are, and they fight until the evening. And technically, you can say 32nd Infantry Regiment lost the battle because they're the ones who retreated. It's the weaker of the two. And 3rd Infantry Regiment won against their teammates. So this is obviously great news for the Germans. You've destroyed a lot of Polish units without having to fight them. And moreover, Polish Mazowiecka Cavalry Brigade and pretty much the 78th Infantry Regiment, they're like destroyed. They're destroyed for the most part. Maybe they have some they have some men that are flowing in through and are able to make their way to the main front line, but most of them, they're just encircled, and the German soldiers behind the front line are just going to mop them all up, and they can't do anything to fight it. So Panzer Division Kempf made serious attacks against 78th Infantry Regiment, but also against 79th. 79th is also attacked by some western elements of Panzer Division Kempf, and some engineers of Petzel's 1st Corps. I think it's of the 61st Infantry Division, but it might be the 11th. They managed to break through the Polish anti-tank defenses at Mława. So this is pretty big, at least for them. The anti-tank ditches were supposed to be like almost impenetrable. That's what it's supposed to be like. That's what the first encounter felt like. 6-meter wide ditches, tall walls, and they've also stuck up these railroad lines, train tracks is what they're called, and just stuck them up vertically and just used them as walls. So Germans couldn't like break through because the Poles, they just used train tracks, stuck them up vertically onto concrete, and that's their defense. The Polish artillery can fire from behind, but at some point it's broken by the engineers, who are able to find a way to come across there. So now that means that the forces in Mława are going to be under a lot more pressure after this. Although the biggest pressure is going to come from its eastern and southern flank, from the main attack going on in that direction, trying to attack the rear. So Modlin front in general is just in a pretty bad situation by the end of September 3rd's events. So good day for the Germans, bad day at Modlin and Rzegnowo, and at Bashinish. The entire eastern flank is just collapsing, and the 8th Infantry Division is unable to sustain it. And Krukovich Przmirski knows this, and probably Rich Migley also knows this. It's not going well, and they're pretty much on collapse. But of course, they have other important matters to think about as well, such as the events in Silesia and from the Slovak border. They give you a very, very brief overview of what happens to the other parts of the front. Polish corridor is broken. Heinz Guderian's corps managed to break the corridor and just demolish a bunch of Polish forces in the Pomorze Army, Army Łódź, and Army Krakow are also under some trouble, and the Carpathy Army is also in trouble. The Germans have breached from Slovakia. Slovak troops are moving there as well. Czestochowa has fallen, Mokra has fallen, and the Germans are trying to close in to the big city, Krakow. And we'll see whether that happens in a different episode, because that's Army Group South. But the last really important thing that happens is on the diplomatic front. Germany has been at war with Poland for 3 days, since September 1st. But since 11:15 a.m., Britain goes to war with Germany. And also hours later, France goes to war with Germany. So Germany is going to soon be at war with the entire Commonwealth, as well, basically all of the British allies, British Commonwealths, dominions, I should say. So Germany is technically now in a two-front war. France and Poland. Although Poland are doing really well, and France, as you'll see, they don't do a lot of effort to try to cross the Maginot Line into the Rhine. But Poland is pretty screwed in many different front lines. So that's September 3rd. September 4th is where the complete collapse of Army Modlin comes in. So 20th Division's commander, somehow forget who he is. He also talks with Krukovich Przmirski and orders the retreat south of 20th Infantry Division to Modlin Fortress. But the problem is, it's hard to do that. They actually failed to do a lot of that, even though the order came at afternoon or the morning. And Nowogrodzka Cavalry Brigade, so that's to the west, the Polish left and German right, is retreating as well to the south, and Mazowiecka Cavalry Brigade is facing collapse. 8th Infantry Division is trying to hold on, mingling in with 20th Infantry Division, but they're also unable to hold the front line, as we'll see, because since the Germans expect the retreat of 20th Infantry Division, they decide to just try to prevent as much of it as possible from getting away. So part of it, what happens is Luftwaffe attacks. Luftwaffe 1 uses its bombers, Suka bombers, and dive bombs all of the 20th Infantry Division. And a lot of casualties due to that. And also, since they want to withdraw from Mława, there's going to be a lot of casualties. So yesterday, and I'm using yesterday because I'm pretending the present is September 4th, 1939. So if the present is September 4th, yesterday, 20th Infantry Division commander had basically requested for, please, let's leave. it's not going well. He just didn't get the permission from Emil, and today Emil Krukovic-Mirski, I love saying that name, allows it. He finally says, yeah, but Mława, you can't keep it. You have to withdraw to the rivers, to the Warsaw, to the Narew, and to the Bug, and to the Vistula. This isn't going to work. So they withdraw from Fortress Mława. The entire eastern flank is collapsed, and now the western flank is collapsing. The center flank is collapsing as well. And of course, if center flank is collapsing, you want the left flank to withdraw as well. It's not collapsing; it's withdrawing. So that's why that cavalry brigade also withdraws south. But problems occur with the withdrawal. It's not an orderly withdrawal. A lot of casualties, not only due to dive bombers, but also poor communication, so they don't cooperate so well, and they also don't successfully take all of their weapons with them to the south. So they're leaving a lot of weapons and ammunition behind, and on top of that, they're being chased with armored units, which is pretty scary, and you're outnumbered as well. So that it's a horrible situation for the rest of Army Modlin, and at this point they're kind of stuck because reconnaissance is used. German reconnaissance tries to block the line of retreat. They actually kind of do. They capture the town of Cihanov, and because of that, a lot of 20th Infantry Division, I know the 79th, and definitely the 78th, probably 78th Infantry Regiments, they're blocked by the reconnaissance. They can't get through, and they just gotta wait to be mopped up by the Germans. And same thing for the small remnants of Mazowiecka Cavalry Brigade that are escaping, and 8th Infantry Division. Both 13th and 32nd Infantry Regiments are pretty badly damaged because of the events on the previous nights, the friendly fire incidents between the two regiments. But the other regiment isn't that badly damaged, although it has failed its initial objective of attacking it. But so 27th Infantry Regiment, 13th Infantry Regiment, and 32nd Infantry Regiment all withdraw south and try their best to not get their forces surrounded. And actually, what happens is that a lot of them do get surrounded. So there's actually an attempt. So there's a little counterattack at this moment. So 4th Cavalry Battalion, I think 27th Cavalry Battalion, then the Armored Battalion, I want to say the 91st Tank Battalion, although I have to check later. Those forces make a counterattack attempt, a small attempt to try to hold the line as much as possible and to allow the withdrawal and to kind of serve as obstacles for the Germans to overcome. But then they aren't able to make any like serious injuries except to the 217th Infantry Division, which, as I said at the beginning of this video, is like a joke. It's 217th Infantry Division is a weak division. I don't know, but not wave 1 or wave 2, and probably not wave 3. They're late divisions, they're smaller, firepower of an infantry regiment for an infantry division, and the Poles are still, despite all of these attempts and all of these massive maneuvers and attempts to prevent encirclement, they're not able to really stop the Germans, except for one thing. And there's going to be one thing, which is going to be Feder von Bock. Feder von Bock does not believe in destroying the Polish forces right now. So Polish forces are weak. They could easily be outrun, and after they're overrun, destroyed. And that's already like the end of the Modlin Army, even though a lot of the Modlin Army is pretty badly damaged. Instead, what Kugler wants is to, not Kugler, what von Bock wants is to attack to the southeast and cross the Narev River. So maybe I was thinking that if he does that and reaches the Narev, then maybe Germany would have more land against the Soviets, or that Germany might have more say in the conference table at the end. Although there is no hard evidence for any of this, thinking just Bock wants to go behind the Polish units even more, even further east. They're kind of going in the direction of Brest-Litovsk. But first they gotta cross the Warta River. So a lot of Polish units retreat to the Polk area west of Warsaw along the Vistula, and not many go directly to Fortress Modlin, which is the purpose of the Modlin Army. Most of the Polish defenses of Modlin Army are elsewhere than directly in front of Warsaw. So really, Warsaw is pretty much undefended. So, and there's no reserves that can be used. Army Prusy is going to be busy in the south. So Feder von Bock had a possibility. He had a good opportunity to capture Warsaw and to strike at the Vistula River and probably capture a bridgehead, which he passed on because he wanted to cross the Warta River, not the Vistula River, and go east and not south. So that's going to be a crucial division, a crucial decision for Feder von Bock and all of Third Army and Army Modlin. So Rich Migwi, by the end of September 4th, he understands what horrible situation the northern fronts are, right? Modlin Army has completely collapsed. They've lost control over Rzegnowo, lost control over Mława. They've lost a lot of troops, like almost all of their troops, and they're basically basically dead. And the entire northern front is exposed, and Warsaw can be captured at any time. So Rich Migwi knows this, and then so does Kurkowicz Brzezinski, who, by the way, actually escapes south and goes like kind of like the general HQ in talks and stuff, because he knows that he's pretty screwed. So despite the efforts, and the Polish troops make great efforts, and by that I don't mean just the frontline action, but the efforts before the war, the years and years and years of building up their forces, building up their defenses, building up their resources and equipment. They do well in the first few days, but inevitably, they're outnumbered, outgunned. They're unable to make a great stand against the Germans by day 3 and day 4. So, Battle of Mława is over. There's some other action on this front line as well. I think I'll just finish it up. It's not that much. So on the last day, September 5th, 1939, a lot of the German forces are moving east of Third Army. They're moving east to the Warta River, because that's von Bock's request. Not request. His order, to say that more correctly. And Kugler obeys and goes east, and basically they try to cross the Narev at Rozan, and it does not go very well on September 5th, at least. So on September 5th, there's multiple attempts to cross the Warta River. None of them are going to work. So first, you gotta understand that it's part of the Polish force defending. It's not Modlin Army, and also it's not the Warta. Why do I say Warta? The Narev operational group. It's actually the Vyshkov operational group. The Vyshkov operational group is the one defending Rozan at this point, and there's only 2 battalions that are actually defending the area. But it's a river bridgehead, important, so the Poles fight with all their might at this point. And by the way, the overall commander of Vyshkov operational group is he's a brigadier general, Kowalski. And on September 5th, two battalions of a regiment, 115th Infantry Regiment, are the ones that are facing the bulk of Third Army's force going east, and which includes the panzers and all the heavy equipment. So first attack is by the 12th Infantry Division. So German 12th Infantry Division and 1st Cavalry Brigade both start attacking in the morning at 10 o'clock, but the Germans don't get through. They're repelled by the strong defenses of the 115th, and even air power support does not deter the Poles. They're still able to hold on, and even after that, Panzer Division Kempf comes in, the big guns. Panzer Division comes in with 7th Panzer Regiment, and 7th Panzer Regiment is not able to cross the river at Rozan either. And while you can say, oh, why don't you just build a bridge further south? Well, I guess you could build a bridge further south, but there's going to be Polish forces there too. So the best choice for this was Rozan, and that's also the simplest. You don't have to build a new bridge. It's also direct. If you want to go to Grodno or Brest-Litovsk or Białystok or any of these eastern cities and just capture them really quickly, then von Bock is perhaps doing the right decision for the Germans. 7th Panzer Regiment of Panzer Division Kempf makes no headway, and neither does any of 1st or 12th Infantry Division, and neither does even SS Regiment Deutschland. Nothing crosses the river on September 5th, which is pretty good news, but they do realize, the commander realizes that they gotta retreat anyway, and this happens all the time. It's that, and happens well in the Polish army, unlike, say, the Soviet army, which doesn't approve of withdrawal many of the times. The Polish army, they're so comfortable with withdrawals and retreats all the time, and that's really what they have to do strategically. Strategically, their goal is to withdraw and suffer less casualties until the Allies help them out. And at this point on September 5th, it's been 2 days since the Allies declared war on Germany on September 3rd, and yet they hadn't made any powerful movements across the Franco-German frontier. So, the Polish forces there, Kowalski orders them to withdraw, and so they do, and they're actually facing a 10-to-1 numerical disadvantage in terms of just numbers alone. If you go based on heavy equipment, I bet it's a lot more than 10-to-1. But 2 battalions, before we've seen a regiment facing off a division alone, but in this case, it's 2 battalions. 2 battalions. So, like, imagine that's like 2,000 men that are fighting off of like 40,000. So they're suffering a huge disadvantage, and yet they're able to hold the line, which is pretty impressive. And until the next morning, there's going to be no attacks on September 5th, 1939. And also at the same time, 21st Infantry Regiment of the 8th Infantry Division on the Polish side, and elements of the 32nd Infantry Regiment, they're in the Modlin Fortress, but they see no sign of Krukovic Przezimierski, because he's nowhere. He's not actually at Fortress Modlin, and he's not actually like present because his army is basically collapsed. So yeah, that's basically it. Because of von Bock's order, the Polish forces in the Vistula live to fight another day, despite being completely devastated. But yeah, by September 5th, Army Modlin was utterly destroyed. So yeah, that's going to be the end of my episode 1 on the German invasion of Poland. The second one is going to come out later, regarding the 4th Army, and also we're going to have some Kukler in there, because there's going to be Falkenhorst and his 2 divisions that are going to meet up with 3rd Division. You'll see that. Pomorcia Army's destruction is going to be next episode. So Modlin Army getting destroyed, and then the next Polish Army, Pomorcia Army, gets destroyed as well. So you're going to see the next episode in a few days as well. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next episode.